In this video, we'll be going over the concept of homing and how to set the homing procedure from within the myCNC application. So first of all, if we go into myCNC and into the Mill tab, we can see the Run Homing Procedure for All Axes button right here. If we click that, this will bring up a confirmation window, which will ask us whether we want to run the homing procedure for all axes. We aren't going to run that for now, but we're going to go check what the M138 macro does. To do that, we can go into our main menu, Settings, Configuration tab, Macro List, and then we can go M138. So in the M138 macro, we have some homing flags which are commented out because of the use of the semicolon here. And then we have our regular macros for homing, and each one of these macros will run the homing procedure for that particular axis. So M133 for the Z-axis, M131 for the X-axis. If we don't want to run a homing procedure for one of the axes, let's say we don't want to run a homing procedure for axis A, we can set a semicolon in front of it, and then we can click Save PLC. To check what these actually do, we can either go directly to that macro, or we can go into the macro wizard and generate it from there. So let's say we want to generate M131, which is the homing X. So here we have the homing settings screen, and here we have the macro preview. First of all, we can check the homing direction. It can be positive or negative, and that depends on the direction in which you're moving towards your sensor. If you have to move in the negative direction, you set the minus sign, and if you have to move in the positive direction, you set the plus sign. Next, you select your sensor number, and that's dependent upon which input you have connected the sensor to, and you set the sensor type, so its default behavior, whether it's normally opened or normally closed. If it's normally open, it means it's off by default, and if it's normally closed, it means it's on by default. Next, you can set the ignore limits flag, and this should be set to be on if you're using the same sensors for your limits and for the homing procedure, which is going to be most people. Next, you have the soft stop in case you want to decelerate before coming to a complete stop, and that's done to not damage the machinery. We can set the distance to the home sensor. We can set our gap. Let's say our gap is 0. And if we had a gap, we would have our gap speed, which would be activating as we were moving towards that gap distance. Then we can set our speed, let's say 500. And we can set our slow speed, let's say 50. Our position after homing will be 0. We do not want to reset the work position after homing. And we can set the default file name of M131. And we can just add a little comment in the macro header saying video test. Next, we can click the generate macro button, and it will change the macro somewhat. To save this macro, we can click the save macro button, and after we go into the macro list, our M131 will be changed.